What's up, guys? So in the last tutorial, what we did was we designed basically the bare skeleton of the login system that we are creating. And just to refresh your memory, the problems with it, so we had it all laid out, but the progress bar, first of all, is spinning, and we can see it all the time. So we want to change that. And when you click on it, it's turning white and just nearly disappears. So we don't want that. We want to add some customization to these, and I want to show you how to customize some buttons, and that way you can really make it your own and manipulate some stuff, and really get used to making custom buttons and gradients and selectors, and add a border, maybe a little shadow to this or something. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do in this tutorial. We're going to go ahead and customize all of this and make it our own. And in the following tutorial is when we'll start adding some backend and start writing some code. And so yeah, let's get started. So let me go ahead and close this out. All right, so let's go into our main AXML folder, or I'm sorry, file, and we will add a background to the button. And if you want to add like a normal, just a color, you can do that. Just add a color and it'll change the color, and that's pretty much it. But if you want to really get into adding customization and making these more oval maybe, or adding some gradients or some user feedback when they actually click on the button, then you're going to want more than just one color, obviously. So what the method that's used most is basically just adding a whole nother file, and then adding that background and pointing it to that file and saying, hey, add all this stuff to the background. So let's go ahead and go into our drawable folder, and we want to add a whole nother file. And let's make sure we add an XML file. So XML, not AXML, but just XML. I know it can be confusing sometimes. It is for me. And we'll go ahead and call this button sign in style. All right. And that'll give us just a blank XML file. And the first thing we want to do is we're going to want to take all of this out, and we're going to want to create a selector. Okay, so selector is something that's used basically, and it tells the program to what to do depending on if the user's selecting it, if it's in focus, if it's not selected. So that's mainly what the selector is for. So we're going to start that off, and we're just going to type some of this out. This is something I admittedly do copy and paste most of the time because it's pretty standard, but I will go ahead and type it all out just for you guys. All right, so let's go ahead and do that and close it off. All right, so now we got our selector. All right, so now we need to add what is to be done when in different states. So when the user is not pressing the item that it's tied to, which in this case is the button, then do what? What do we want to do with it? So this is when we start adding some components to it. So we're going to add a layer list, and just follow me along. A lot of these things are just kind of common, just styling it in different ways. So we're going to add a layer, an item. All right. And add a top, add some spacing to that item. All right. And then we actually can shape the button if you want to. So you can add a shape, and then here's where you can actually, okay, the shape takes some corners, and then you give it a radius. You apply the corners and you give it a radius. So the higher the radius value, the more it's going to be that bubble oval look, until it's just crazily circular. So that's what that does. If you want to manipulate, I mean, you guys can go in here and if you want to add 5 or 6 or whatever. These are just values that I'm kind of just making up. So yeah, go ahead and feel free to tweak with that. And the color of it is going to be something like, oops, and D6. And close that off. All right, so we're saying the shape of it to take a corner, to take the radius of 2, and to make it a solid color. All right, so that's gonna close off. Let's give us some space here so we don't get lost. And finally, we're gonna do the same thing, but for the bottom of the button, the bottom left, that is. All right, so once again, add a shape, and the shapes, and there's lots of properties that you can add to this. You just have to kind of get more familiar with it and just look around, and sooner or later you'll really get more familiar with adding what the corners take and the shapes and all that good stuff. This is just some really basic stuff that I'm kind of adding here, just to give you guys a feel. Don't need a solid on that. Sorry about that. And let's change this to 4. Give it more of a look on the bottom. And let's give it a gradient. So the gradient is going to be, so this is the angle of the gradient is basically what angle the colors fade in, at what angle it does it. So that's 270. So it'll fade in from that angle. And you can change that to, anything you want. You can change it to 0 or 90 or whatever, but just play around with it and see, what you like best. But 270 work in this case. And the end color of the gradient is going to be, and this is going to give it that color that we've seen in the other tutorial. I believe it's A9. All right, and then you got to specify a start color. All right, so I'm going to be lazy and I'm just going to say, okay, just give it the same color, So the gradient's kind of not going to do anything, but I just wanted to show you guys that. So like if you want to tweak with the colors, that way you have the ability to just kind of start color, end color, and really just easily just tweak with it. And the next thing you want to do is add a stroke to this. And once again, feel free to, just manipulate all of these things and just kind of play around with it, just kind of giving you guys more ideas to play around with and really be able to see what does what and all that stuff. That's really just the best learning experience when you can add some padding to it even. To the bottom. Oops. And to the left. And to the right. And finally the top. Okay. All right, so now that looks all good. And this is all gonna apply to when the user is not touching it. So this is basically how it's gonna look by default, in other words. And the way you want it to look when it is selected, when it is pressed, is gonna be, you can change it radically to where it just, the whole thing just changes, But some people, mostly what I do is just change the gradient just to give a little feel of some feedback for the user. And just for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. Go ahead and do the same if you like, if you do have a good feel for it. And we just want to change this to true. So when it is pressed, now apply this stuff to the button. Okay? And we'll change this around a little bit. We'll change the end color so that's pretty much the only thing you need to change in this case. You can, like I said, you can go ahead and change some other stuff if you like, some of the other colors and the other values. But in this case, just change that for now, and that'll give you the look of it when it's selected, and you'll be able to see, but you can change this to whatever you like. So these are just the values that I am going to happen to use. And that should be all for that. So let's go ahead and go back over to our main. And the way you specify that is, what we want to do is we want to change the background, and we want to point it to the file that we just created. And that's what you do is the @ symbol, drawable, because if we put it in the drawable folder, and we specify the file name. So button sign in style. Make sure that's exactly the way it is over here. And you don't need the .xml, but just make sure that's exactly the same name as it is over there. And the designer, sometimes, right now it looks like it is working fine, but sometimes it doesn't get it. If it doesn't, that's okay. Just go ahead and run it. It is usually the best case to see whether it is working or not. Sometimes I've had times that the designer just won't get that background color or the style that I created, and but when it runs, it's fine. So that might be an issue that you're having. Just so you're saying that's an issue that I have sometimes. But in this case, let's go ahead and run it. It's always good practice just to run things in between and make sure that it's all running smoothly, because the way it looks in the designer isn't always the way it looks here. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it looks worse. So it is always a good idea just to kind of run it, make sure that everything's working smoothly. And after this, we'll go ahead and we're going to make the second button, and it's pretty much the same thing. You can make it differently if you like, but it's pretty much the same thing that I'm going to use, just some different gradients. Okay. So it's almost built. All right. So you should be able to see now that when you get a little shadow right here, a little border, and some gradients coming in, and now you should be able to see that, well, I'm sorry, when you have the button clicked is when you get the gradient, and that's just giving some users some feedback saying, hey, the button is being clicked. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that out, and we're going to do the same thing for this guy. All right, so let's create another file in our drawable folder, and this one we will call let's do button sign up style. Okay. All right, so for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and take this button sign in style that we made, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it over here. Okay, and the only thing you really need to change just to get something that looks a little different are the colors, the gradients that we're going to use. So to get that orange look for the sign up button, the color that I use is the hexadecimal value 7847. All right, copy that over there. And like I said, you guys can manipulate those values all you want. Feel free. And then the start color is going to be the same, and the end color is going to be a little different. That way, the user that's clicking on this can see that there is some feedback. And that's pretty much it. And the last thing that we need to do for that is to go into our source file. And you can also do it in the designer as well. So let me show you that. So go in here, and if you set the background, Visual Studio will pull up everything that it has. Hey, these are all the resources that we have. And sure enough, there it is. Sign up. And there it is. Okay. So that's it for the buttons, and they're pretty much good to go. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to set this progress bar right here. Set its visibility to, well, actually, you know what? Let me leave this so that we can see it, since we're not going to work with any kind of coding right now. That way we can see it, and because we're going to style it and add a style for that, and that way we can see that style when we do run the program. So let's go in here, and we're going to want to create another XML file, and this one we'll just call progress bar style. Okay, And for this one, we want to set a rotate property. And we should be able to copy and paste this thing, this guy, over to here. And just set it inside of this rotate tag, the beginning of it. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to set a pivot. For a progress bar, we want to set the pivot to usually like 50% is a good value. Okay, and that's 50%, and that's on the x-axis. So we want to pivot on the x-axis 50%. So that's just, you kind of got to manipulate the values to really be able to see what it's doing. Unless you kind of do that, it's a little hard to explain. So just set the pivot of the x and the y both to 50%, and we'll do a from degrees, and we'll set it to just 0. Keep it simple. Oops, I think I spelled that wrong. Okay. And then we do a 2 degrees to 360. Okay, so start from 0 to 360. In other words, rotate. Rotate. All right. So that's pretty simple. Thought I was missing something. Make sure you close that or take that out and put it over here. And I spelled that wrong again. Jeez, what's wrong with me? Okay. And the next thing you want to do, like how we did in the button, is you want to set a shape. Okay. And we want to set the shape to a ring, which is pretty standard, just a little circular rotating thing. So for that ring, the radius ratio, so it's about 3. And these values, like I said, like I keep saying, just go ahead and play around with them. I said that's what I suggest, and you'll be able to see which each one does. You know, you're like, hey, what the heck does that do? But it takes a lot of time to keep running the program and showing you what it does. And maybe you don't care, maybe you do. If you do, then just like I said, just keep running it and kind of change some values and see what it does. That's usually the best learning process. That, at least for me, it is. And we want to set a gradient to it, and the gradient's going to be, let's make it the same color as that orange. So it's 57847. Okay, and then we'll set an end color to it, and that was E67E55. Okay, and the angle of it, of the gradient, this is applied to the gradient right now. We'll just set it to 0. And there we go. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, guys. So I messed up on that part. We have to close out the shape. So let's do a shape. Messed up on that. Sorry, guys. Change that to ratio, not ration, or whatever. And then we want to add a few more things to the shape. Okay, so we want to add a thickness to it. Keep doing ratio. I don't know what the heck's on my mind right now. And we'll set that to 8. Okay. There we go. And then we want to set a size inside of the shape, what the shape of it is going to be. Sorry if I confused you guys. I skipped over one thing. It crossed my mind. And the height of it to also the same value. Close that out. Okay. So then let's make the gradient. We have to actually specify the gradient. I was over there making it without the actual property name. The type to sweep. And we've got to set the use level to false. Okay. And we'll close that out. Take that whole thing and let's add it to the shape. All right, clean it up a little bit. All right, so we have the shape property, and inside of that we have the size of it, the gradient of the shape, and then close it out with the rotate. So this whole thing's rotating on the X and Y axis and from 0 to 360 degrees, so it's going to be in a circular fashion. And here's just some of the colors that you guys can manipulate if you want. That's kind of the main thing. And there it is. So go ahead and copy that out. You need to pause the video or something. Go ahead and put that in. So I might have confused you guys in the beginning. So let's go ahead and close that. Now we come back to our main and we want to set the background of this. Okay. And the way we do that is the same way that we do with the buttons. Background equals at drawable, or you can also do it in the designer like we did before. Whatever is easiest. Progress bar style. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and run this guy. And it looks like we got a little error. It happens. String types. Oh, okay. I forgot to put the pound sign in, so go ahead and add that in if you forgot, or maybe you were smarter than me and remembered to do that. So let's see if we get any more errors. No, looks good. All right. Cool. Okay, looks good. So as you can see, each one is highlighting the way it should. The progress bar is spinning, and the colors are around the colors of this. So if you want to mess with the colors or make it blue or gray or leave it the way it is and you don't care about the progress bar, do whatever you like. So, but that's the way it's done. And the next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and focus on the back end of all this. So we'll actually register the click events, and we'll bring up that dialog, and we'll be able to pull in that and probably show you how to also add some borders to the text boxes that we'll put inside of the dialog and all that good stuff. And that's where it gets a little different with Xamarin.Android, but to me it's a lot easier, and you're going to really like the way it is and the way that you can do events and closings and just really start to see how much cleaner it is to do in C# than it is in Java. That's just my opinion, but that's the way that that's what we're going to do in the next tutorial. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and see you soon. Thank you.